It started on a Thursday night. I was working late, the office nearly empty, with only the dim glow of my computer screen lighting up the room. By the time I finally shut down and stepped outside, it was almost midnight. The streets were quiet, the city's usual hum reduced to the occasional distant car and the soft rustling of trees. I zipped up my jacket, pulling it tighter against the cold, and started the 15-minute walk home. It wasn't long before I noticed the footsteps. They were faint at first, the kind you could easily dismiss as your own echo. But after a few blocks, they became unmistakable, steady, deliberate, matching my pace. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see a friend playing a prank, or maybe just a late-night jogger. Instead, there was a figure standing beneath a street lamp about a block behind me, just barely illuminated by the faint orange glow. I couldn't make out their face, but their posture was rigid, motionless, as if they were waiting for something. They didn't move as I looked at them, and I felt a strange chill, a prickle of unease running down my spine. I turned back around and kept walking, telling myself it was nothing, just some random person out for a night walk. But the footsteps continued, growing louder and closer. Every time I quickened my pace, they did too, each step synchronized with mine. I was only a few blocks from home when I decided to take a detour. I turned down a side street, hoping to lose whoever it was. The footsteps paused for a second, and I dared to feel a moment of relief. But then they resumed, faster now, almost urgent. By the time I was halfway down the street, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I stopped and turned around, heart pounding, ready to confront whoever was following me. But there was no one there, just the empty, quiet street stretching out behind me. I forced myself to laugh, a hollow sound that didn't quite feel real. I was just tired, overworked, probably imagining things. I took a deep breath and turned back around, only to see the figure standing about 10 feet ahead of me now, blocking the sidewalk. I stumbled backward, my heart racing. The person was tall, unnaturally thin, their face hidden in shadow, their head tilted slightly, as if studying me. For a second, I thought I could see a glint in their eyes, a cold, reflective gleam that didn't seem human. I didn't wait to find out more. I bolted down the street, cutting through alleyways and zigzagging through unfamiliar paths, hoping to lose them. My breath came in short, frantic bursts, my legs shaking with fear as I ran. But no matter which way I turned, every time I looked back, I would catch a glimpse of them, always the same distance away, always just within reach. Finally, I reached my building, fumbling with my keys as I rushed to unlock the door. The footsteps had stopped, but I didn't dare look back. I darted inside, slamming the door behind me, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. I stood there in the dark, breathing heavily, trying to calm down. After a few minutes, I convinced myself that I was safe, that it was over. I walked slowly to my window, peeking out onto the street below, expecting to see nothing. Instead, the figure was standing directly outside, staring up at my apartment. I could see them clearly now, tall, with sunken, dark eyes that locked onto mine, even through the glass. They didn't move, didn't blink, just watched, like they were waiting for something. For me. I pulled the curtain shut, my hands shaking. I double-checked the locks on my door, paced around my apartment, trying to calm myself down. But every time I looked out the window, they were still there, motionless, staring up at me. That night, I barely slept. Every shadow, every creak of the building made me jump, and each time I looked out the window, I could see their shape, standing, waiting. This went on for days. No matter where I went, I felt watched. In the morning, they'd be there, standing across the street. At night, I'd see their figure in the shadows, following just out of reach. I tried telling friends, the police, no one believed me. They said it was probably just a stranger passing by, or that I was overworked, stressed. One night, after nearly a week of this, I came home exhausted, feeling like I was losing my mind. My apartment felt too quiet, too still, but I was too tired to care. I went straight to bed, pulling the covers over me, hoping I'd finally get some sleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up to a faint sound, a slow, dragging scrape, like someone was moving something heavy across the floor. My body went cold as I lay there, holding my breath, trying to convince myself it was just a dream. Then I heard it again, louder, closer. I slowly opened my eyes, my heart hammering in my chest. Standing at the foot of my bed was the figure. Their face was just barely visible in the dark, twisted into a faint smile that sent a jolt of terror through me. They leaned closer, their eyes dark and empty, their face inches from mine. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, as they whispered in a low, rasping voice, "You can't run from me." And then they were gone, leaving nothing but silence and darkness in their place. I never saw them again after that night, but I still feel them sometimes. In the quiet moments, in the dark, I can feel that presence, watching, waiting, somewhere just out of sight.